The girl was just moments away from being assaulted, yet her friend Justin stood frozen nearby, unable to intervene. The reason he didn't dare step forward was because the monster in front of him was his own father. One by one, the beasts violated the girl. Then they prepared to silence her for good, but Mari suddenly broke free and ran toward the lake. Without hesitation, she dove headfirst into the deep, dark waters. What she didn't expect was that Giles would pull out a gun. He began firing wildly in her direction, just as Mari was about to reach the far shore. A bullet struck her in the shoulder. Bright red blood instantly bloomed across the water's surface, but that single shot would come to cost them all the ultimate price. Just an hour ago, Mari and her best friend had met Justin. The three of them hit it off immediately, so they made plans to hang out at Justin's house. Everything was going great, until Justin's father, Giles, suddenly returned home with two men. Justin was instantly confused. After all, his father was supposed to be in prison just yesterday. He started to ask what was going on, but Giles punched him hard in the stomach. Then he tossed a newspaper on the ground and scolded him for bringing people home. It turned out they had escaped from prison. Now the entire city was out looking for them, which also meant the two girls had just seen something they never should have. Mari and her best friend began to panic. They hurriedly swore to Giles that they wouldn't tell a soul, but Giles simply shook his head, making it clear he had no intention of letting them go. Sensing danger, her best friend broke free and ran into the bathroom. She quickly pulled out her phone to call the police, only to realize there was no signal. She tried escaping through the window, but it had been sealed shut. Moments later, John kicked the door open and stormed in. He grabbed the girl and slammed her hard to the floor in a rage. Then he snatched the phone from her hands, grabbed her by the hair, and smashed her head into the sink with brutal force. Mari tried desperately to get help from Justin, even though Justin didn't want to see them hurt. He was powerless to stop what was happening, and so, the two girls were forced into a car at gunpoint, because the main roads were swarming with police. Giles decided to take a safer route through the forest trail, but what he didn't realize was that Mari's house was nearby. At that very moment, her parents were home, staring out at the familiar path. Mari suddenly came up with an escape plan. She waited for the female captor to let her guard down, then quietly pressed her foot onto the cigarette lighter. Amidst the chaos, Giles failed to notice the terrain ahead. He accidentally drove the car straight down a steep slope. The vehicle completely lost control, after violently crashing several times. It finally came to a stop in front of a tree. Mari's friend managed to crawl out of the car, trying to escape, but just as she stood up, Giles struck her down. Meanwhile, John had his nose broken in the crash. Just then, Mari's friend grabbed a wooden stick and struck the female kidnapper with all her strength. She quickly got to her feet and sprinted into the depths of the forest. Giles restrained Mari and ordered John and the woman to chase after the fleeing girl. Luckily, the girl was clever enough. She hid beneath a hollow in a tree trunk and managed to evade their search. Once they moved further away, she sprang out of hiding and ran in the opposite direction as fast as she could. Not long after, she spotted a factory in the distance. Just as she was about to run forward and call for help, the female kidnapper suddenly jumped out from behind. Though the girl struggled with all her might, she still couldn't escape their grasp. And just like that, she was dragged back by the two of them. Watching Mari being brutally tortured, her friend couldn't stop cursing at them, but this only enraged Giles. When her friend collapsed to the ground, Mari completely broke down. After enduring the torment, Mari slowly stood up. She picked up a rock and smashed it against the unsuspecting Giles. Then she ran into the woods as fast as she could. She knew there was a lake not far from there, her best chance of escaping. Without hesitation, Mari dove into the freezing water, but before she could get far, Giles and the others were already in pursuit. Blood quickly dyed the lake a deep red. Mari, barely clinging to life, floated motionless on the surface. Just then, heavy rain began to pour from the sky. Seeing this, Giles turned and walked away. With their car totaled in the crash, They had no choice but to travel on foot, but the rain was coming down hard. Before long, they arrived at a nearby house to seek shelter. What they didn't know was that this house belonged to Mari's family. The Krug family had no idea these people had just murdered their daughter. They welcomed the group warmly into their home. Tom, being a doctor, even stitched up John's injuries. Meanwhile, Justin walked into the kitchen to put down a glass, but when he turned around, his eyes landed on a photo of Mari stuck to the fridge. It hit him like a lightning bolt. This was Mari's house. Panic surged through him. He rushed into the bathroom and broke down in tears. The guilt consumed him. He blamed himself for not stopping what had happened. After struggling with the decision, Justin finally placed Mari's necklace beside the glass on the counter. Though he didn't dare stand up to his father directly, he chose to give Mari's parents a silent clue. As the rain poured harder and harder, Mr. and Mrs. Krug led the four into a nearby room. They told them to rest there for the night, and to leave only after the rain had stopped the next day. After making all the arrangements, Emma had just returned home when she heard a knock at the door. The couple quickly went outside to check, only to find their daughter Mari, barely clinging to life. It turned out Mari had not died by sheer willpower. She had crawled back. They immediately carried her inside. Seeing the gunshot wounds on her body, Mr. Krug hurriedly told Emma to fetch medical supplies from the kitchen, but just then, Emma noticed Mari's necklace beside a glass on the table. Only at that moment did she finally realize the whole truth. Krug held the dagger over the fire to heat it up. Then he poured strong liquor over his daughter's wounds. He inserted a tube and carefully drained the fluid from her lungs. After Mari was stabilized and out of danger, Krug removed the bullet lodged in her shoulder. He then carefully examined her injuries. He found that Mari was not only bruised all over, but had also been brutally assaulted. Krug asked his daughter who had done this to her. Before she could answer, Mari fainted once again. At that moment, Emma took out the necklace and told her husband that the culprits who harmed their daughter might be the four people who sought shelter there that night. The thunderstorm had destroyed the signal tower. The couple couldn't make any calls for help. Their only option was to take the boat and get their daughter to the hospital. But the problem was they had no idea where the boat key was. Without wasting time, they split up to search. Krug went to check the warehouse for the key. Emma started searching inside the house. Just then, John suddenly appeared behind her. He said he couldn't sleep and wanted to grab a bottle of wine from the fridge. Emma noticed Mari's photo stuck on the fridge. She quickly called out to John, secretly removed the photo, and then pretended to be interested in him. She invited him to have a drink in the living room. John's interest was immediately piqued. He eagerly followed her into the living room, but when he looked up, he saw Mari lying on the table.
Son of a bitch.
Fortunately, Krug arrived just in time and saved Emma. Seeing this, John quickly ran to the window and shouted loudly for his accomplices, but the rain was pouring so heavily that no one could hear him. At that moment, Krug lunged forward and broke John's nose with a single grip. He dragged John into the kitchen, then pressed his head down into the sink, not wanting to alert John's accomplices. Krug knew he had to end it quickly. After dealing with John, Krug quickly stepped forward to comfort Emma. They had no way out now. The only solution was to get rid of the criminals. So, while Giles was fast asleep, the couple quietly sneaked into the room, but just as they reached the bedroom door, they saw Justin pointing a gun at them. At that moment, Justin signaled for Krug to come and take the gun. He had long had enough of his twisted father. He was determined to make him pay the price he deserved. Krug understood his meaning. He slowly walked over and took the gun from Justin's hand. But just as Krug was cocking the pistol, he suddenly woke the female kidnapper. At that moment, Giles threw off his clothes and took the chance to jump out the window. He slipped into another room and began yelling curses at Krug. Giles was furious, not understanding why Krug wanted to kill him. It wasn't until he saw the wallet on the table that Giles finally realized what was going on. By then, Krug had already chased after him, but Giles had disappeared into the shadows. After being brutally beaten by Giles, Krug was kicked straight down the stairs. Then, as Giles picked up a weapon and aimed it at Krug, Justin suddenly appeared. He pointed the gun at Giles, but to everyone's surprise, the gun was out of bullets. Seeing that Justin was really daring enough to pull the trigger, Giles instantly flew into a furious rage. Finally, Giles was successfully subdued. Not long after, he woke up from his unconscious state. What awaited him was the fury of a father. Krug performed a physical castration on him. He restrained Giles so that his entire body couldn't move except for his head. Then, without hesitation, Krug placed Giles' head inside a microwave. He flipped the switch without a second thought. And just like that, this ruthless, evil pervert finally received the punishment he deserved.